Okay, we'll get rolling. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Marty Mascari. I'm with the North Central Texas Council of Governments and the North Central Texas Area Agency on Aging. The Area Agency on, the Aging and Disability Resource Center. I certainly apologize. The ADRC is a project of the Area Agency on Aging, and both are under the umbrella of the North Central Texas Council of Governments. We're very, very blessed again today here to have Dr. Mottern for our series that we partner on to talk about my loved one has symptoms of narcissistic personality disorder. How can I best manage our interactions? But before we get started, I'm going to talk a little bit about the CEUs for those of you that are joining us for CEUs. If we could advance the slide when you can, Doctor. Back one, if we could. For those of you that are joining us for CEUs, we are offering CEUs today for licensed social workers and licensed professional counselors. We're set up to provide that in the state of Texas. If you have a different license or you're outside of the state of Texas, you're more than welcome to get a certificate and go through the process. I've had many people tell me they've submitted them for their licenses and they've accepted them, but there's no guarantee of that. We're only set up in Texas for these two licenses. We're also offering certificates of attendance. If you're interested and need that, the guidelines are the same. You'll be doing the same thing. Today we're offering 1.5 hours of CEU credits. You must complete the entire webinar to be eligible. That means you really can't miss more than 5 or 10 minutes of the webinar to be eligible. You must complete the Google survey evaluation. It should pop up as you close out of Zoom today. If it doesn't pop up because of a pop-up blocker by your company or some reason, you will also receive that in a follow-up email that I'll send out. We're asking everybody to complete the Google evaluation survey. We use that to report back to our funders on the objectives we set forth when we applied for our funding to do these. The survey will be sent out in the link in the follow-up email. The survey will be up and live for 1 week from today at 5 p.m., which would be the July the 20th. And then if you could give us till the 3rd of August to get you your certificates. If we don't get them to you by the 3rd, feel free to reach out to us on the 4th. But if you will give us at least till the 3rd and let us get those out to you, we'd certainly appreciate it. Next, I'd like to talk a little bit about Dr. Mottern, if we could. So Dr. Mottern is our presenter and our partner with with these webinars. He's the executive director of the Mottern Institute for Mind-Body Wellness. He has 22 years experience in-person and worldwide virtual treatment in the areas of cognitive restructuring, behavioral modification, emotional regulation, and physical improvement. And I'm sure you're joining us if you know somebody today that falls under the topic we're talking about. They may need services, who knows, or you might need their help. He is publisher and author. He's published and authored a book, Living Well, A Guide to Cognitive Behavioral Skills Exercises. And so Dr. Mottern, I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. Nice to be back once again. This seems to be a very popular topic. Let's get started. I'll try to leave some time at the end so we have some questions on this, because I'm sure everybody has their own experiences with this and what have you that they might want to discuss. So what we want to look at, what is narcissism? Where did that come from? Want to look at, is there a narcissistic spectrum? I have my own ideas on that. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then we'll get into actually what is narcissistic personality disorder. We'll look at the DSM-5 TR criteria for that. We want to look also at maybe some types of narcissism. Those aren't DSM criteria, but it may be helpful to look at those a little bit. The concept of narcissistic rage and what that looks like, and then what you can do to deal with that. And then also narcissistic supply and what you can do to deal with that as well. And then just some general things. So once again, This seems like a very popular topic. I know that it pops up in my private practice. Just not too long, I've had people engaged in relationships with narcissists several times, and it's a very difficult thing. But so where does this come from? Where does this term narcissism come from? What is this all about? Some of you may know it. Those of you who don't, it comes from the Greek. The Greeks had a story about a young man called Narcissus, who was very handsome, apparently, but he got sort of full of himself, which is sort of a characteristic of narcissism, but he got full of himself, and so the gods didn't like that type of vanity, so they made him, he looked at him, he went out in the woods one day, saw himself in a stream, and fell in love with himself, and stayed there until he died. Some stories say, others say he tried to kiss himself and fell into the water and drowned, but it didn't end up well for him. The Romans went on, and sometimes if you read the Roman story, you have Narcissus and Echo as well that's in there. But that's really where it came from. And that, I mean, when we're talking about narcissism, that really sums up what that is all about. That sort of feeling unique and special, that, you know, and because I'm unique and special, I'm entitled. And then, you know, that entitlement also sort of comes with a lack of empathy for other people, all of which were present in the original Greek story, right? So that's where the name comes from. That's where we sort of get that idea of narcissism. One thing I do want to just touch on this briefly, probably more than I should, but it's just sort of a bee in my bonnet. There is this idea that there is a narcissism spectrum. There is a spectrum of narcissism, and we're all on it, okay? That is not true, okay? This is my opinion, okay? That is not, I find that to be a very difficult concept for me, because what it says is it says it's a deficit model. It says we're all sick, just some of us are sicker than others. And I don't buy into that. I don't believe that. I've seen this same thing done with psychopathy, that we're all on a psychopathy spectrum. But really, you know, if 90%, 95% of your population is at zero, and then you only have 5% who's on the spectrum at all, what use is that? Okay, so I think these spectrums come about because what we have is people who want funding in academia, and they want to, you know, they want to get tenure and what have you. So they come up with these wild ideas that, oh, well, we're all on the narcissistic spectrum somewhere. Now, in the literature, you'll see a couple of different kinds of narcissism: adaptive narcissism and maladaptive narcissism. And this is where you get that spectrum. We'll talk a little bit more about those later. But to me, that's like saying you have adaptive vampirism and maladaptive vampirism, that we're all vampires, just some of us are not as vampire-ish as others are. We all have to suck the life out of something to live. And so, you know, that's us on one end, and then on the other end, you have like Dracula or somebody on the other end. Well, that's nonsense, okay? When 95% or more, 99% of your population is at zero, aren't even on that spectrum at all, then it makes no sense to use something like a narcissistic spectrum. But once again, people do it, I think, for sensational reasons, to get funding and tenure and what have you. What's more accurate would be to look at there are characteristics like self-esteem. Okay, that's all. Self-esteem is often called adaptive narcissism. Well, that's, once again, that's ridiculous. That's self-esteem. The narcissists have self-esteem. Oh, they have abundant self-esteem. They go beyond self-esteem. Okay, and this is the beyond part that makes them narcissists, not that they have self-esteem like a normal functioning person would. So once again, the spectrum, I reject this idea of the spectrum. I think it's just something. I think what's much more accurate is to look at a cycle. You have a population, and if we look at the DSM-5-TR, the percent of the general population that fall under narcissistic personality disorder is from 1/2 to 1%. Okay, 1/2 to 1% fall under that. In the clinical population, it's somewhere from 2 to 16%. There's a big gap in there. And oftentimes, as I was looking at this, I saw some numbers that said, 5% to 6.2% of the population. I don't know where they're getting that number at. Like I said, the DSM has 0.5 to 1. And then in the general population, in the clinical population, from 2 to 16. Maybe they're melding those numbers in some way. I'm not sure. But you have that population, okay? That's the population with narcissistic personality disorder. So that's what we're looking at, okay? We're not on a spectrum here. We're looking at that that population of it, okay? And I think it's more understandable to, once again, to not look at a spectrum, but to look at a cycle. So what we have in this narcissistic cycle of abuse, look at the picture there, and we're going to start on the left-hand side where it feels empowered, because that's how a narcissist has to feel, okay? I must feel empowered, okay? So we start there, but then something happens. Then something happens, and they have some fear of losing face, okay? Which is a thinking error. But we have fear of losing face, and then they engage in power thrust, which is another thinking error, okay? And they inflict abuse on other people in order to feel themselves empowered, and at the same time, they'll often play the victim, right? That's the victim role, right? So they fall into that till they get back to that place of feeling empowered. So these people go through that sort of cycle. Okay, once again, it's not a spectrum, okay, and everybody doesn't do that. We're not all on this spectrum, okay? When we feel threatened or when we feel bad, we do not necessarily inflict abuse on other people and play the victim in order to try to feel empowered, okay? Certain population does. That's what we're gonna look at today. So, narcissistic personality disorder, okay? It's a cluster B personality disorder that includes antisocial personality disorder, borderline, which is what we're going to look at the next time I'm here, and histrionic personality disorder, and then, of course, narcissistic personality. Those are the cluster B personality disorders. That's where this falls. Now, what is it? It's a pervasive pattern of grandiosity, okay? Pervasive, meaning it's throughout their life. Okay, throughout the many different aspects of their life, that's where this pattern shows up in thought or behavior. Okay, the thoughts tend to be fantasy; they're not based in reality. But for the Greeks, once again, going back to the Greeks, thinking was called phantasia, which is where we get fantasy from. So, in thought or behavior, have this grandiose sense that I should be admired. Right? Have this overwhelming need for admiration. Once again, that lack of empathy. Okay, I see myself as unique. I should be admired, and yet at the same time, I don't care about other people's feelings. Okay, this usually begins by early adulthood, and some of the difference in the numbers that I just threw out a while ago. It's oftentimes very difficult to, when you're dealing with adolescents, right, to distinguish what is a clinical problem and what is just adolescence, right? Adolescence ruin all sorts of scales, okay? So maybe some of the difference in numbers goes there. But it usually starts in early adulthood. And once again, present in a variety of contexts, okay? It's pervasive in their life. It's not just in one situation that you find them act this way. It's throughout all situations throughout their entire life. But they have to have at least 5 of these characteristics, okay? So one is a grandiose sense of self-importance, okay? For example, they will exaggerate their achievements or their talents, right? I am the best at this that you have ever seen, right? Expects to be recognized as superior without proof of it, okay? I can tell you that I'm the best that you've ever seen at this, but I'm not going to prove it to you, right? I'm not going to show it to you. You're just going to have to take me at my word. If you don't, then I'll fly into a narcissistic rage. We'll talk about that later. But I expect this adulation to be mine when I've really done nothing to achieve that. Okay, so may assume that others attribute the same value to their efforts and may be surprised when the praise they expect and feel is not forthcoming. So you should, once again, you should admire me for all of my contributions to society, although there are none. And when you don't admire me, I'm shocked. That, well, what do you mean, right? I'm shocked at this. Often implicit in this inflated judgment of myself and my accomplishments, I devalue or undervalue the contributions of other people. So, for example, that would be like, because of me, our team won the championship. It's my, that rests on my shoulders. I'm the one who did that. And just ignore that anybody else had anything to do that. In business, this will show up as well, right? Oftentimes you deal with this in business. Not a good thing to deal with in a business situation. Neither is psychopathy. And these things can show up together. I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But I devalue the team. It's because it's all about me, right? It's all about me. Enough about me. Let's talk about what you think about me, right? So that's that sort of thing. Okay. So that overwhelming sense of grandiosity, but then also they're preoccupied with these fantasies of unlimited success and power, brilliance, beauty, ideal love, right? All of this stuff I'm long overdue to get my just desserts for the brilliant person that I am, right? And they'll often compare themselves to other people who are unique and privileged. So, well, I'm just like Nikola Tesla. I'm a genius scientist. It's just not recognized. Okay, what have I ever done to prove that? Nothing. Okay, nothing. And I don't want to try. Okay, and I don't want to try to prove it, because that gets back to that's part of the uniqueness that I feel, is that if I try and fail, then I've just blown my whole idea of me being so brilliant, right? Or being so successful or powerful or whatever it happens to be. So I won't even try to prove it. Okay. If you ask me to try, I'm just going to dismiss you. You don't need to know. You just need to take my word for it. I'm not going to try, because if I tried, I would probably, prove that I wasn't worth that. And I'm not going to do that. Another one is that believes that he or she, and most of the time I'll catch myself talking about he as we do this. And the reason that I use he more is that about 75% of narcissists are male and 25% are female. So I'm just going with the vast majority of them. If I use that they're male, but he or she, okay. Once again, they're special, unique, can only be understood, right, by other people who are special and unique. Okay, you're a peon. You don't understand what's going on with me. Only this person can understand what's going on with me, because they're in that position that I see myself in, but I'm not. Okay. Believe their needs are special beyond what ordinary people can understand. You don't understand me is often what we get with that. With, once again, that characteristic of uniqueness. You don't understand me. Okay, which because they don't have empathy. Of course, empathy is understanding the feelings of others, and because they don't have empathy, they don't believe anybody else does either. Okay, so yeah, we can understand how other people feel, no matter what their situation is. We're human beings. We come with a set of emotions that we all experience, because we're all wired the same way. They're not pre-wired. Let me just put that, but we're all eventually all wired the same way. Once again, their own self-esteem is mirrored by that value that they assign to the people they associate with. So I'm not going to associate with you because you're, lowbrow, right? I don't want to associate with you. I'm going to associate with people who are intelligent, who are gifted in some way, because I see myself as brilliant and gifted and what have you. So, and I base my self-esteem on that as well. okay? Because that's the people that I hang out with, so I must be like them. So that's where I get my self-esteem. We see here one of those examples of something that, you know, where normal, healthy self-esteem is not based on what anybody else is doing. Normal, healthy self-esteem is based on what I'm doing, perhaps the respect I get from other people, but for a narcissist, those other people aren't giving them respect, right? Those other people probably don't even know who they are. But my respect comes from the people that I admire in my life and what have you. And once again, requires excessive admiration, right? Now, as their self-esteem is almost invariably very fragile, okay? They struggle with self-doubt, self-criticism, and what have you, as they seek to be recognized by other people. And this is sort of what builds them up, right? This is that, when we went through that cycle, this is that sort of fear of losing face, right, that I get. So I'm always very conscious of that, and conscious of anything that may make me lose face on that. Preoccupied with how they're doing and how favorably they're regarded by others. Once again, the self-esteem has more to do with not what I think about myself, the self-respect that I have, but with what other people think about me. And once again, it's those people that I don't even know, right? It's those people who are in positions that I think that I'm like, or that I want to be like. Expect their arrival to be greeted with great fanfare, astonished if other people don't know them. I've seen that in practice before. It wasn't so much narcissism in this particular case, but it's a good example of what it would look like. He was actually, it was a musician. He was a local musician. He wasn't bad, but he wasn't exactly famous. Nobody outside of his little circle knew who he was, knew what he did, or anything else. I met him in treatment. He was in treatment, but he would go into a hotel or something like that, and just expect people to fall all over him like he was, Madonna or Elvis Presley or whoever the big singer is these days. You expect people just to fawn over him because that's how he saw himself. Okay. Was it true? No, not at all. But that's how he wanted to see himself, right? And that's how he saw himself in his own head. So that sort of thing. And when people didn't do that, he was crushed, right? How could you not recognize me for my talent and what have you? May fish for compliments. Okay, they can be very charming on this. In fact, if you find yourself in a relationship going much like psychopaths, psychopaths are like the peak. Narcissists are below them, but narcissists may be very charming, treat you very well when you get into that relationship. We'll talk more about supply later, but then after that, that's when things start going bad. Okay, so they can be very charming on this, and they can use that charm to fish for compliments and what have you. That sense of entitlement is there. And what we mean by that is it's unreasonable expectations or favorable treatment or automatic compliance with what they want. It has no basis in reality. Okay, it's their sense of entitlement. They think people should jump to do what they say immediately. People should once again admire them, give them special treatment and what have you. For no reason. Nobody knows who they are, right? Nobody really knows. But they expect it anyway. Once expect to be catered to, are puzzled or furious. We'll talk about narcissistic rage later, when it doesn't happen, right? So they go, much like this guy who was a musician, he would go into the hotel or something and expect, the suite and all this other sort of stuff. And people just like, who are you? Okay, and so he would become enraged over that, very irritated over it. They expect to be given whatever they want or feel they need, no matter what that might mean to other people. Okay, so somebody's already in your suite. I mean, I'm sure the hotel would definitely have given him the suite if he was going to pay for it, right? But he didn't expect to pay for it. That was the thing. And there are people in it. Well, throw them out. Okay, they're not as important as I am. Get rid of them. Put them somewhere else. Okay, I deserve that. Another example, a way this shows up is they expect dedication from other people, especially at work, right? You work for a narcissist, they may expect you to spend all your time, all your free time doing work and really overworking you. And they care nothing. Once again, they have no empathy. So they don't care what it does to your family life. They don't care what it does to your social life. That's unimportant to them. The only important thing is that you get this done and you get it done right now. Now, of course, when you get it done, who's going to take the credit for it? They are, right? Because I'm going to dismiss your contributions to this, right? It's me. If it hadn't been for me, you wouldn't have done it. Okay, so I'm the one who deserves that. Okay, many other examples of all these. I'm just giving brief examples as we go through. Many of you have your own examples of these, I'm sure. Okay, number 6 is interpersonally exploitative. Okay, take advantage of others to achieve my own ends. You know, oftentimes when I do these things, especially on personality disorders and that sort of thing, I'll do from the movie, right? Where can we find an example of this from the movies? I did that with narcissistic personality disorder. And the examples that really they came up with almost in 100% of the time had more to do with psychopathy than they did with narcissistic personality disorder. And let me just say, narcissistic personality disorder can be co-occurring with all of the other cluster B personality disorders. Now, psychopathy is not in there. It's not a personality disorder, but it can be associated with that as well. That's why sometimes there's confusion on, well, is this psychopathy? Is it narcissism? What's going on? Narcissistic personality disorder can be associated with antisocial personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, histrionic personality disorder. Those can go, all those things can occur together. Okay. This sense of entitlement that I have combined with a general just lack of understanding, no empathy whatsoever, I exploit others, okay, either consciously or unwittingly, okay? And then the unwittingly part is just, this has become so much a part of my being, which is why it's a personality disorder, that I don't even notice it anymore. This is just the way I am. I'm not trying to be this way. This is just the way I am. Okay. I form friendships or romantic relationships only if the other person is going to get me something that I want, right? If it's going to enhance my own social standing, enhance my own feelings about myself, my own self-esteem, that's the only time that I'll do that. Otherwise, once again, you're beneath me, right? You're beneath me. I don't need to associate with you. What do you bring to the table to help me? I usurp those special privileges and extra resources that they believe they deserve. Okay, you're stuck in a lifeboat adrift at sea. Guess who you don't want with you, right? You don't want a narcissist. They're going to drink all that water when nobody's looking, okay, because they deserve it. They're going to eat all the food when nobody's looking because they think they deserve it. Okay, so don't want to be in that situation with anybody else. Okay. Even at home, right? If we're not in a life and death situation so much, they may consume resources from other people that, you know, medications, things like that, right? If you're on similar medications, they just take your medication because they're more important than you are. Okay, so they can take that medication. You don't need it as much, or you can go get some more somewhere else. Once again, may intentionally and purposely take advantage of others emotionally, socially, intellectually, financially, for their own purposes and gains. And this is what makes it so difficult to get out of a relationship with a narcissist if you're in. Many people I know who've been in romantic relationships with them or married to them for a while or something of that nature. And it's very difficult to get out of that because you have property together, you have perhaps children together, and so it's very difficult to separate yourself from that person. And they know your triggers. Okay, a narcissist knows exactly how to trigger you. there is a movie. They often engage in what's called gaslighting. Okay, some of you may be familiar with that term. Gaslighting is a term. It actually came from a movie. The movie was called Gaslight. It's an old movie, black and white movie. But in the movie, this man is trying to drive his wife crazy. So, and when this occurs, they still have the old gas illumination that you had to, you turn up the gas and be brighter. So what he would do is every day he'd turn the lights down lower a little bit. And then when she'd make a comment that, it seems darker in here, he would say, darker? What are you talking about? It's not any darker in here. And he had it all the way, and eventually he got it all the way down to where it was almost total darkness in the house. And the woman thought she was going crazy. She's like, everything's getting darker. And he's like, what are you talking about? Things aren't getting darker, right? That's gaslighting. That term comes from that movie. So oftentimes this is what people will do to take advantage of other people. They will gaslight them, manipulate them in this way for their own personal ends. Okay. Not a good place to be, not a good thing to experience. Okay? Also lacks empathy. Okay, empathy, that understanding the feelings of others. If I'm a narcissist, I don't care what your feelings are. I don't want to care what your feelings are. Okay, I'm concerned about my feelings and how I feel. Right, that was the little thing I said a while ago. Right, enough talking about me. Let's talk about you. What you think about me, right? It's all about me. It's all about my feelings. Your feelings are unimportant. Okay. That now they have some sense of cognitive empathy, and that is that I understand that you're feeling this way, but I don't feel what you're feeling. Okay. How this is often put is they understand the words, but not the music. Okay. So they understand the words to the song, but they don't get the music. So cognitively, sure, yeah, I can see that you're upset. What does that feel like to you? I have no idea. No, I can't relate to you whatsoever. Once again, oblivious to the hurt that their remarks inflict. I'm not so sure that they're all the time oblivious to it. Once again, they can be oblivious to it. This can become so, so a part of me that I do these things automatically, right? Especially in it's a personality disorder. But sometimes I know that it hurts other people, and I do it that way. I do it for that reason anyway, right? Because that's what gives me that feeling of power. Now, after I do that over and over and over again, then yes, then at that point it becomes really, it's just second nature to me that I do that. In order for me to feel better, I need to hurt somebody else. Okay. The needs, desires, and feelings of others, should they ever notice them, are likely to be seen as a sign of weakness, okay, or vulnerability, okay. Vulnerability means you are vulnerable for me to use. Narcissists do that. Oftentimes the same lack of empathy. This is what often associates this with psychopathy. In psychopathy, lack of empathy is a characteristic sort of that. So this sort of overlaps from narcissism to psychopathy. With those who relate to individuals with narcissistic personality disorder typically find that emotional coldness or lack of reciprocal interest. Once again, it's not about you, okay? It's about me. So everything's going on with me. You're unimportant. What you feel, if you feel anything at all, is unimportant. Okay, well, maybe I think, okay, I can see you're feeling something, but I don't really know what, I don't understand it. I don't understand why you're feeling that way. And in fact, you're sort of hurting me by your feelings, all this stuff that you got going on, and now is interfering with my life. So now I'm going to play the victim, right? So I play the victim on that as well. And that's sort of, once again, going back to that cycle. Is envious of others or the beliefs of others, or believes that others are envious of them, right? So I envy other people. Once again, it's not a healthy thing. It's not looking at somebody and saying, I really like that they're a wonderful tennis player. I'm going to up my game and become a better tennis player, right? That's not the same. Would be the healthy thing to do, right? they're good, and I don't like that because I'm not good as they are, and I should be better than they are. I'm not going to practice to do it, but people should recognize that I'm just better than them anyway, and I won't play them. That's the part that either quits at the first sign of failure, or I don't even try. So I either quit at the first sign of failure, or I don't even try. Okay, that's the uniqueness aspect of that. And I don't do that because if I try and get beat, that's going to deflate my ego greatly. Okay. Once again, they harshly devalue anybody else's contributions. Don't acknowledge them. Don't give them praise for their accomplishments. Make you work your fingers to the bone, stay there 16 hours a day. And then when we finally get the project done, guess what? Who gets the credit for it? Me. Okay. Who did all the work on this? I did. Okay. I devalue or don't even acknowledge the contributions of other people. This is why these sorts of people will destroy a team. They'll destroy a company if you have them in there. And this is sort of the difference. I don't want to fine a point on this, but that's to be successful, you have to be a leader, and you have to have self-confidence in business wise. You have to have self-confidence. You have to be a leader. You have to have these sorts of things that go along with that in order to project that appearance of success and what have you. That is different than narcissism, because in narcissism, there's nothing to back that up. It's based on a false premise. Okay, I have nothing to back that up for me, and this is much the same way with psychopathy. So you have somebody who they sort of project these things, so they get, and then they take advantage of their coworkers, but they're the ones who toot their own horn, so they get promoted, and that goes to a certain extent, and that's going to destroy the company because they're not really doing anything, and they don't have any idea what they're doing. Okay, because everybody else is doing their work for them. Same thing happens in psychopathy. In fact, there's something called the B-Scan 360. Babiak and Hare developed that for business, and it is designed to weed out psychopaths in the business world. Because, like I said, many of the seemingly same qualities that good business leaders have, psychopaths and narcissists have as well. They're coming from a different place, and a good leader will have those and have the meat behind it, while the narcissist and the psychopath do not have either one of them. Okay, they just present the good thing. Once again, sort of that they know the words, they know what to say, they know all of this stuff, but they don't know the music. They don't have a sense of really what's going on or why they're successful or anything else. So this is where they may be, right? I devalue others' contribution. I think I'm the best, so I get promoted or what have you in the business world, and then eventually that's going to destroy the company, just like psychopathy will. And that's the reason they come up with things like the B-Scan 360, so these people don't infiltrate the higher levels. Shows arrogant, haughty behaviors or attitudes. That's your classic thing, right? Now, many of us do that sometimes, right? Sometimes we get a little haughty, sometimes we get a little attitude with it, a little arrogant in some of the things we do. But that's one thing, right? Remember, to get NPD diagnosis, you have to have at least 5 of the 9 that we went through, okay? And they have to be at a significant level. They have to be at some level that we can look at, that we can see, that we can measure, not just some fleeting thing that goes on every now and then. So don't, this is one of the things. I know this is a popular subject because when I look at Facebook, I see all kinds of these little tests. Okay, it's either are you a narcissist or are you a psychopath? Okay, those are the ones that I see when I look on Facebook, and that tells me that this is a very popular topic, right? If you're a narcissist, you're not going to do that test, okay? Because you don't care. And same thing with a psychopath. You don't care. if you are or not. You're just concerned about getting your own needs met, and you don't care what it does to other people. So you're not really interested in the test whatsoever. But I see those sorts of things. So don't go there. Okay, if you see them on Facebook or social media or whatever, you say, I wonder if I'm a narcissist. No, you're not. Okay, the very fact that you're wondering about it, it means you're not. Okay. All right. So this is the reason I'm putting the Dark Triad in here, because once again, I've referenced psychopathy over and over. And the reason I put this in here is because, once again, narcissism can be co-occurrent with antisocial personality disorder. Some people say that psychopathy is on the scale of continuum of antisocial personality disorder. So they can sometimes be confused, those characteristics, especially the lack of empathy, the grandiosity, the manipulation, these certain sorts of things. And there is something called the Dark Triad of personality, and that is, if you have that Dark Triad, you're not a good person. Okay, you don't want to know people like this. Okay, they're psychopaths, so they engage in psychopathy. They have the psychopathy, narcissism, and Machiavellianism. And Machiavelli, of course, wrote The Prince. Machiavellianism is how to manipulate people. Okay. Now, all of these are about power control, and that's the reason that sometimes that these are confused. They're hard to say, well, is this narcissism? Is it psychopathy? What's going on? Remember, it could be both. They both sort of overlap some characteristics, and they both can co-occur together. So if you're diagnosing it, may be that you're diagnosing both narcissism and psychopathy. Okay. Now, there are other things. You're diagnosing psychopathy, you'll use something like the Hare Psychopathy Checklist Revised, which is the gold standard for that. So you're going to have other tools to do that with. But these things sort of overlap, because they're all about power control. They're all about manipulating other people, lack of empathy, this grandiosity that we have. So these things are very similar. They're distinct if you get into the clinical measures of them. They're a little bit distinct. But when these things all occur together, when psychopathy, narcissism, and Machiavellianism occur together, that's called the Dark Triad, and that's not good. Okay, let me just say that's not good. But the reason I put this up there once again is because sometimes it can be difficult. Like I said, when I was looking for movies that had, okay, what are some movies that may have a narcissist in them or what have you? Most all of the things that I saw, most all of the examples that were given were actually of psychopathy. And some of them would say, well, they're a psychopath, but they display these characteristics of narcissism, which overlap with the characteristics of psychopathy. So I didn't really find any. We're not going to do that today. But that's, I just wanted to throw that out there for you so you could see that and know that it's there. Now, as far as types of narcissism go, there are a lot of, you can go online, you can find lots of types and subtypes of narcissism. It just depends on what you're looking at. Okay, you can find as few as 2 types, and that's usually the adaptive or maladaptive. You'll actually see those in the research literature. And then you see other things that go up to as many as 13 types of different narcissism. Okay, now once again, note that none of these are part of the diagnostic criteria in the DSM-5-TR for the narcissistic personality disorder. Okay, DSM doesn't talk about types of narcissism. You're either narcissistic personality disorder or you're not. Okay, you either get the classification, you're 5 or more of these things, or you're not. Okay, it doesn't go into types and subtypes. However, it can be, if I'm dealing with narcissists, if I work with narcissists, if I have to live with a narcissist, right? Sometimes it can be helpful to know different types and how they show up and things like that. Personally, I think it doesn't matter what type of narcissist they are. If they're a narcissist, you need to get out of the relationship and have no contact with them, whatever. Okay, so it's not an example of type or subtype. So if they're a narcissist, get rid of your contact, okay? Because it's not going to work out well for you, okay? Ever, okay? And people think that they can outsmart narcissists like they do psychopaths and things like that. Let me tell you, this is a personality disorder. These people live and breathe this. You can't do it. Okay, your best hope is escape. Okay, but for the interest of things, we can look at these. So two types, once again, adaptive narcissism, and that refers to those aspects of narcissism that can be helpful. Okay, high self-confidence, high self-reliance, the ability to celebrate myself and my accomplishments. These are things that may seem like a positive thing, right? Once again, these come from sort of that sort of continuum idea, which I don't agree with, because high self-confidence is different in somebody who's not narcissistic as opposed to somebody who is. Somebody who has high self-confidence, who has great achievement behind it, that's very different from having high self-confidence and no achievement behind it, okay? I can't just look at it and say, well, they have high self-confidence. Now, for promotions and business and stuff like that, that may be all they're looking at, right? So that's sort of why you have to go behind that. Self-reliance, well, they're depending on themselves. Self-reliance is good in America anyway. Self-reliance is good, right? We want to do that. We want to be self-reliant. With a narcissist, is it self-reliance? Probably not. Okay, probably what we're seeing is that they're telling somebody else that they're the ones who are doing this, that they're self-reliant, when actually they're relying on other people to support them in that sort of thing. So that's one of the reasons I don't like that continuum. But this is it, in adaptive narcissism, these more positive aspects of things, while the maladaptive narcissism is traits that do not serve you well, okay? They negatively impact how you relate to yourself and others, entitlement, aggression, taking advantage of other people. These are the things that are sort of maladaptive, okay? So it's not, yeah. Okay, I'll let it go. I'll let it go with that. So just to give you an example of this, okay, we'll split it. We have from 2 to 13. We'll split it in half and take 6, right? So 6 types of narcissists. There's the cerebral narcissist. This is the person who is focused on intelligence, right? That I am smarter than you. I saw a recording recently on the Texas deposition, okay, with Jake Jamel, who used to be he's passed away now, but he used to be a lawyer in Houston, and they were doing a deposition of a man who was a chemist from Monsanto, and it was something to see him work. But in this deposition, he calls the guy he's deposing. He says, "You're a dumb son of a gun." Okay, he didn't use those words. And the guy got up out of the chair. He was getting ready to come after him. They had to hold him back and everything. And it was an interesting comment on that. The person who put that video out said he thought that what the guy was most upset about was not being called a son of a gun, but a dumb son of a gun. So it's that thing that, you know, you can insult me and my family how you want, but don't call me stupid, right? Don't call me dumb. So the cerebral narcissist is very, very attuned to any sort of slight in the intelligence, right? That if somebody's going to say, well, you're not as bright as so-and-so or something. I mean, they're very in tune for slights that have to do with intelligence. There's the somatic narcissist. This is the I'm more beautiful and physically talented than you are, right? Once again, not necessarily borne out by any objective measure, right? But it's just that I think that I am. I remember when I was going through graduate school, working on my master's degree, the professor gave an example of this, and she used to go dancing. She used to take ballet as well. And she said that when she went to the ballet studio, there was a man who would come in, and you know, he was a ballet person. I'm not sure what do you call a male ballet person? It's not a ballerina. Anyway, a dancer. And as he would do his stretches and watch himself in the big mirror that they had there, he would get an erection from watching himself stretch. That's a somatic narcissist. Okay, if you're going to divide it up into, it's narcissism, most definitely. If you were going to separate it out, it would definitely be a somatic narcissist, right? My own physical beauty turns me on. Okay, that's, I don't know how much more of that you could, how much deeper in that you could get. But anyway, so that would be an example of that. The overt narcissist, once again, is somebody, you know, I'm in control of you, and you're going to know I'm in control of you because I'm going to put that control out there. Okay. Then you have the covert narcissist. That's sort of closet narcissist. I'm in control of you, but I'm going to act like you're in control of me. Then I'm going to take the victim role and use passive aggression to sort of control you. That's the way I do it. Now, I'm always in control of what I'm doing. I don't actually feel that way, but this is how I'm going to go about controlling you. So it's more closet, it's more closed than the overt, just power control override there. The parasitic narcissist is the one that, you know, I control you by telling you, you need to take care of me, right? They're a parasite. Okay, I think Glasser, when he looked at things, when he did this, called these the workless people. Okay, I'm not going to go out and work because my skills are beyond any job that I can get. Not that I have proof that I can do anything that I say I can do, right? Okay, I'm the best painter there is out there. I'm the best HVAC guy there is out there. How much time have you spent doing that sort of work? Well, I worked for a month once with a guy. You know, it's that sort of thing, you know, but I was just too good. They got jealous of me, and that's the reason they fired me, right? It wasn't that I wasn't doing my job and couldn't do my job, but it's because they were jealous of me. And now, because I can't get any other jobs because I'm so good, you need to take care of me. That parasite. And then there's the boomerang, right? You need me in your life again and again and again, right? And unfortunately, this is the way that relationships with narcissists often show up, is that they get their hooks into somebody, and in many different ways. Number one, they know the triggers. They know your triggers better than you do. Okay, so they can manipulate you right and left. Okay, but they do that in order to put themselves back in your life. Now, in a minute, we're going to talk about narcissistic supply. And oftentimes I'll put myself in that position, and that's the biggest problem I have in private practice with people, is they put themselves right back into that position. You know, when I tell them, cut off all communication, don't have any communication. Well, I went ahead and called them this, you know. But for the boomerang narcissist, it's they're controlling that. They push your buttons, they, you know, throw your triggers and what have you, and you end up back in your life over and over and over again, which is a general thing that we see in narcissistic relationships. Okay, now we did talk about narcissistic rage a little bit. Narcissistic rage, and for time-wise, I'm not going to go over, you have the slides for these, and I'm not going to go over these necessarily in depth, but anytime, remember that cycle, okay? Remember the cycle. I have a fear of narcissist has fear of losing face, either my intelligence, my beauty, my power, my skills, something is questioned, right? So I have that fear of losing face. So what do? I engage in power control. And that comes out in oftentimes as using anger as a weapon. Okay. And that's exactly what it is. It's not just that they get angry. No, that would have to do with me, right? They're going to get angry and then use that as a weapon. That's narcissistic rage. That intense anger, aggressive or passive aggression, we talked about that. When I have a setback or a disappointment that sort of shatters my illusion, right? That maybe I'm not as adequate as I thought I was. So that shatters that. I have that fear of losing face, engage in power thrust. Once again, that power control, using anger as a weapon is the technique that I use. And then oftentimes I'll play the victim, right? If the narcissist, I'm going to play the victim as well. And then when I do that, then that gets me back into equilibrium. Okay, so narcissistic rage occurs in many different forms. However, they all share that distinctive and specific psychological flavor, which gives them a special place in human aggression. Once again, and what that is uses anger as a weapon. Okay, I'm going to use it to get what I want. Okay, the need for revenge, for righting a wrong, undoing hurt by whatever means, doesn't make any difference. Okay, those people who've suffered that, who've I've done that for, they'll recognize this in a minute. Okay, they'll recognize this as that using anger as a weapon, as that narcissistic rage. Okay, once again, that's exactly what that is. I use that anger as a weapon. It's distinct from, it's not just anger. I'm using it as something to beat you over the head with, to make myself feel better. And if you've ever experienced that, then you know exactly what that's like. So what do I do if I have that? How do I deal with that? Well, become familiar with the personality, so you can recognize the person's triggers and outcomes, and the outcome's never going to be good for you if you engage in it. Okay, so you want to keep yourself healthy, and that means mentally healthy, and that means seeking therapy for yourself. Okay, avoid giving direct criticism or feedback if you know that this is, I want to talk about where I can improve. Well, no, that's a trap. That's a trap. Okay, no, you don't have any place to improve. I don't know anything about that. So avoid that direct criticism, avoid giving direct feedback to somebody who's a narcissist, that you've identified that they are indeed narcissistic, have those characteristics. Don't escalate the conflict, because it could lead to personal harm, right? So, once they engage in that power thrust, and then they're going to continue to escalate that until they come out on top, even if you're lying unconscious on the bottom. Okay, so don't escalate it. Don't take things personally. Don't seek out revenge, because you're not going to win. I'm telling you, they're not just professionals at it. This is the way they are. Okay, it's a personality disorder. So don't take things personally. Recognize this is an example of narcissistic rage that's going on. I'm not going to seek revenge. I'm going to get myself out of the situation. Okay, don't share too much personal information with anybody, especially at work and things. Your family knows a lot about you. Many people raised in families that had a narcissistic parent or brother or sister or what have you. So they know about you. But if it's any place else, at work or anything like that, keep your private life private. Okay, don't start giving information that can be used against you. Okay, if you feel threatened, call 911. Okay, get somebody else there. Oftentimes, narcissists will be so good at playing the victim that that will not turn out like you hoped it would, right? But if you feel threatened, call 911, then get out of there, right? Recognize that you're not to blame for this. You're not responsible for how anybody else thinks or feels, okay? That's one thing about cognitive behavioral therapy that it will teach you right off the bat, okay? I am responsible for my own thoughts, my own behavior, therefore my own emotions. Okay, so if somebody feels upset or angry over this, sorry, probably trying to be manipulated if they're a narcissist. Just recognize that the people are engaging in behaviors that are irrational, right? All of those things, power thrust that we talked about, fear of losing face, a victim role, all of these are cognitive distortions. All of these are thinking errors that they're going in. You're not going to reason with them and get them out of it. Okay, number one, because they're not interested in changing, because these behaviors work well for them. They give them the power, that sense of grandiosity that they think they deserve. Why would they change it? Why would they be different? Okay, because of you. Who are you? Okay, that's sort of the way that thinking is going to go. So don't debate them. Don't get in a logical argument with them. It's not going to work. Okay, don't apologize or accept their behavior. It's just going to turn out the same way again. It's a cycle. Okay, go back to that. It's a cycle. You're at one place in the cycle in this relationship with this person. Okay, whoever they are, you're in some place on this cycle, and that is going to change and going to get worse. Okay, and then it may get better, but it's going to get worse. Okay, it's a cycle of abuse. Okay, so get yourself out of it. Don't get angry with yourself. That's going to do no good. Okay, angry at yourself doesn't do you any good. Get logical, get reasonable, get out. If they're giving you the silent treatment, good. Okay, don't engage in it. Don't engage them. Don't try to get them out of it. Just enjoy it when it lasts. If it's explosive anger, once again, get yourself out of there. That using anger as a weapon can actually mean they're using a weapon. So get out of there. You can read the rest of these once again as we go through. I want to talk about narcissistic supply now. Now, narcissism and many of the understandings of narcissism, if you read the research, often come from psychodynamic theory. Okay, this is when we talk about psychodynamic theory in psychology, we're talking about Freud, okay, and his associates, okay, Jung, some of the others. This comes from there, okay. Being from choice theory psychology, being from reality therapy, our understanding isn't that much different, but this is sort of how we understand that, is that, you know, we all have those basic needs and we all do whatever it takes to get our needs met. Narcissists get their needs met by manipulating and harming other people, okay? Now, that manipulation can be hard manipulation, sort of that overt aggression, or it can be soft manipulation, which is emotional, psychological manipulation, the gaslighting, that sort of thing. So, you know, just like a drug addict needs their supply of drugs, narcissists need their supply of emotional support. This is where you sort of get into the thing. They have a weak ego and what have you, so they have to get emotional support for that to get their emotional fix. In reality therapy, we would say their needs for power control are not being met. Okay, so they're going to do what it takes to get that need for power and control met, and that is manipulating and harming other people. And we call, if they're getting it from you, you're their supply. Okay, when we talk about narcissistic supply, if they're getting those needs met from you, from doing those hurtful things, then you're their supplier. Okay, you may be that person where the narcissist is getting their needs met. And if you are, you may have all sorts of difficulties. That may be why you're here today. You know, I've got all these problems. What am I going to do about this? You may have some identities, or who am I? Okay, I don't talk or look or act the same as I did before when I were, you know, I'm not the same person anymore. People will tell you who knew you before, you're not the same person. You don't act the same. Okay, may become exhausted from trying to figure all this out or deal with all this. They will exhaust you. Let me tell you. For sure. Okay, they will definitely do that. My thinking is off. Okay, they tell me they love me, but how can they love me if they're doing these things to me? Right? If I'm experiencing these things from them, and how can they actually do that? So I have this sort of cognitive dissonance, so-called, that we're going through here. But whatever it is, I'm always thinking. I just wear myself out from the sheer amount of thinking on what's going on. You know, trying to figure out how they're feeling, trying to figure out how I'm not gonna cause them to feel any worse, so they take it out on me. You know, the constantly thinking is going on. That's going to cause brain fog, right? Brain fog. Okay, that I don't, you know, my brain just becomes so overwhelmed that I can't see things clearly anymore. Everything's like it's through a fog. Nothing really makes sense to me. I can end up doubting my sanity. That can go on so far. Okay, it can go on so long and to such an extent. I may even suffer from PTSD, depending on the circumstances, right? May become depressed over all this. That's very common, okay, is that as well. So these are the things that I experience, and then I end up just an empty shell, right? Because everything is, the narcissist is erasing who I am and creating what they want to create, which is their supply, right? They want to get their needs met from me, even though it drains me, it sucks all the life out of me. This is why they're a vampire, right? Okay, is over there, and I may not even realize that until after somehow I get out of the relationship And then I start to realize just how bad off that it was. And also I may be emotionally disconnected. Okay. When I stay emotionally connected, that's part of what wears me out emotionally, psychologically, physically. Okay. Going on and off and on and off and on and off. So at the point where I just cut it off. Okay. And that's not good because I have to get those, I have to stay emotionally stable. End up with low self-esteem, addicted to the abuser. Okay. In some way, if I stay in that relationship, that person is also needing my needs. Okay. Maybe I feel like, I recognize that they're doing these bad things, but if they're around me, then they're not doing them to other people. So I'll stay in this relationship. So that gives me a sense of control over it, when in fact that I'm just being played, right? That may be my thinking, but it's not really rational thinking. It's not really logical thinking. So that would need to be corrected. But but that may be why I stay in the relationship. Also, I may just feel a sense of shame. I'm just too ashamed to get out of it and move forward with my life and admit that. Nightmares associated also with the PTSD, the dissociation from this. Okay, you may want to dissociate just for a break, right? I just need to get away from things, so I may actually start to dissociate in order to be able to handle that emotional stress, that psychological stress that I've found myself under. I myself can be easily triggered. Okay, when I have to put up with that, guess what? I'm not in a good place myself. I can get easily triggered on different things. So catching myself in this sort of thing can be, finding myself easily triggered. That can be a sign that maybe I'm the narcissist supply, right? Engaging in addictions myself, okay? Engaging in my own destructive behavior. That can be signs as well that, I wasn't like that before. When I'm with this person, now I'm developing these things. It's not me, okay? I need to get out of the situation, okay? Panic attacks, I can have those based on everything we've looked at. Those make sense, right? Anxiety, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I'm going to be anxious all the time, okay? I'm going to be, trying to figure out what's going on and how to deal with it and all this other stuff. It's going to get me there. So, how do I deal with it? How do I deal with the narcissist? Number one, cut off all communication with them. Do not go back. They know you so well. You're never going to win in a confrontation with the narcissist, ever. Okay, ever. You're never going to win. They know you too well. Okay, you're cut off all communication. This is where it becomes difficult because, like I said, people always say, well, we're married, we have property together. I got to talk to him. Okay, I got to talk to him. Don't, if you don't have to, go through the lawyer. Use your lawyer. If you're dealing with stuff with property and things like that, go through a lawyer. Have the lawyer talk to him. Okay, stay away from it as much as possible. Well, we have kids. I got to pick the kids up from them. Okay, their kids go to them, 4 kids. But so I got to see them as far as the kids go and all this other stuff. So that's often the way that the narcissist keeps their hooks in people, right? It's family. I have to do this. I have to do that. It's a family gathering. I have to be at the family gathering. Well, do you really? Do you? Is it worth it? Okay, do cost benefit analysis on that, right? I don't care if everybody else gets mad at me. I'm not going to put myself through what I got to go through. But if you can, if there is any possible way, cut off all communication with the narcissist. I understand, sometimes it's my parents. My parents are narcissists, right? And this isn't self-disclosure. I'm just using an example. My parents are narcissists, and I'm the caregiver. I have to take care of them, but I have to go through the constant abuse. Is it worth it? Is it worth it? Maybe find somebody else to do that. Maybe send them someplace else. Okay. Is it worth it? Is it worth your own sanity? Like I said, do a cost benefit analysis. Optimal, cut off all communication. at the very least, define clear boundaries and stick to them. Do not deviate from your boundaries once you have set them. They will test you, they will try you, they will find every way to get you to cross that boundary. And when you do, they've got you, okay? Do not do that. Keep clear boundaries and stick to them. If you're working with a narcissist for some reason, in a professional manner, stick to your boundaries. Okay, do not allow yourself to cross any sort of boundaries that you have for professionalism for that particular client. Insist that things be done immediately. Don't let them promise you, oh, I'm going to do this. No, do it right now. It needs to be done right now. No delays. Okay, because what's going to happen? The delay is just another way to get you to engage with me again, so I can get my hooks back in you. It's insidious. Okay, understand that the narcissist will try to destroy all boundaries, just like I said, right? They'll do that. Develop a support group. There are other people, I assure you, out there who are going through the same things. Find a narcissist support group. Okay, go develop that support group. And even if you don't find a support group, if you're in a small town or something, then get people around you who are supportive of you, right? Who, when you, I'm so, they'll be able to catch the change in you. They know you. They're able to catch the change in you and say, what are you doing? What's going on with you? This isn't you. Okay. So they'll support you in being positive and what have you. Get help for yourself. All those things you're going through are not good for your psychological health, not good for your mental health. Okay. If you need some help, get some help for yourself. There's nothing wrong with that, nothing whatsoever. Okay, you should get all the help you need to be a healthy, productive person in your life. And remember, you're not the one at fault. You're not the one with the personality disorder. Okay, they are. Okay, so they need to work out their own problems. They need to work out what they need to do. You're not going to fix them. Don't try. That's how they keep you there, by thinking, oh, without you, my world would just crash. I wouldn't. No, that's manipulation. They're just keeping you there, okay, because you're their supplier, okay? No, they're going to find, they'll need to provide professional help to help them. There are professionals out there who can help them with that. More than happy to, okay? So that's where we are right now. And okay, right on time. Any questions?
We actually we've got about 13 minutes. We've got a little bit of time here. I didn't want you, I thought maybe you were getting to that point. There are a few questions. Somebody asked, I posted the link to Dr. Mottern's slides in the chat a few times. Those will also go out in a follow-up email to you all as well. Kimberly, I'm afraid to at 2:57 in the chat, 2:57 time-wise, you can read Kimberly's and I'll go past that.
Okay.
And usually from there down is where the questions really are.
Somatic ailments also apply to having greater ailments than anyone else. Yeah, sure. You know, if I'm having ailments mine are more than anybody else's, there may actually be no cause behind that. It's difficult to say. You know, things like pain and things of that nature are subjective scales, right? I mean, you know, we use the Wong-Baker Faces scale to do pain, so there's not really an objective measure on that. And if somebody is a narcissist, then I may very well manipulate other people by claiming to be sicker than somebody else or what have you. It could work out that way. It doesn't usually, but it could. Worst case of gallstones, worst exaggeration. Oftentimes those sorts of things are just that. Oftentimes those sorts of things are just exaggeration, maybe more on the histrionic side than the narcissistic side. At some point, we'll probably look at histrionic personality as well. So those sorts of things may be more on the histrionic side than the narcissistic side. But I wouldn't rule out that narcissists would do that. They are more likely, much more likely to have nothing wrong with them than they are something, you know, my pains are worse. That would tend to be more histrionic, I would think. But possible. what do you do when your ex is narcissistic and refuse to get help? Yeah, here's the children, right? It's your beginning similar personalities. Well, where do children learn these things? Where do we learn how to deal with problems? If I don't get my needs met, I learn to deal with them by watching other people, and the parents are the one who are closest. So this is often the reason people who grow up in narcissistic households themselves become narcissists, right? Or use narcissistic tools in order to get their needs met. It's a tough situation to try to deal with that. You just have to try to correct the behavior, point out to them that this is not, when you see the behavior, when you catch the thinking, then you can point out to them, this is not the way it's supposed to be. This is not the way you get your needs met. And then the choice is up to them. Okay. I mean, even if they're kids, the choice is still up to them on how they choose to do that. So it's, like I said, those are some of the really tough situations when we have them in families. Yeah, accuses me of having the disorder. Yeah, well, that's what they do, right? They play the victim role. That's on that cycle, right? Okay, it's not me that's the problem. It's you that's the problem, right? Okay, if you weren't the way you are, I wouldn't be the way I am. Okay, so yeah, certainly. Yeah, how do you deal with that? Realize that you're not at fault. Develop boundaries with that. Okay, tune them out. Okay, know that what they're saying isn't true, that they're the ones with the problem, and go on about your own life. Now, I say these things, and I realize it comes out sort of glib as I say them. I understand that what I'm telling you is very difficult to put into practice. Okay, I don't underestimate the strength that it takes for you to do that, and what have you. But I do empathize with you on these things, but that's where you need to be, right? That's where I need to get to, is where I can just say, this isn't me that has the problem. I'm going to separate myself from them as much as I can. Okay. I know people who've separated themselves from siblings, from parents, and what have you, simply because the narcissist is not going to change. And if I don't want to deal with that, then I have to sever the situation. A rattlesnake is always going to be a rattlesnake. It's not going to be any different. Okay. So, and people who think they can deal with rattlesnakes get bit, and it's going to be the same. It's going to be the same thing. Okay. I'm not saying that people with narcissists are rattlesnakes. Okay. They have personality disorder, but it's the same sort of idea. Well, I don't know. If my wife told me that my salary didn't impress me, I might be upset about it too. Try making up, see if that'll help. I don't know that I would take that kindly myself, just as a sort of an objective viewpoint on that. If the rage itself, remember that when we're talking about narcissistic rage, we're talking about using anger as a weapon. Not just that I'm angry, not just that I'm upset and may give you the silent treatment or what have you. No, it's on that I'm using that anger to beat you with. I beat you over the head with it. If that's what's happening, that may be a little bit of narcissism. Otherwise, it's just insulted. Can you teach somebody with empathy? Empathy is a skill. Empathy can be taught. The thing about personality disorders is that they work for the people who have them. Okay, they meet their needs. So much like narcissism, much like psychopathy, is that in order to change, you have to want to change. And if I'm not the problem, why would I want to change? I mean, I hear what you're saying. I understand on a cognitive level, right? I understand what you're saying here. I don't understand the music, right? I understand the words. But so I don't see that I have a problem, right? I don't see that I have a problem. And if I don't have a problem, why would I want to be different? Why should I engage in all this effort to be different when I'm not the one with the problem? So can they be taught empathy? Yes, if they want to learn it. But I have very serious doubts that they would care to change in that way. Psychopath versus sociopath. What's the difference? Jackie, you're getting me off on a tangent here.
Is that a topic that we need to put on the
list?
list?
Another topic, perhaps. Okay. Just quickly, she got me off. She has a hook. She knows my hook. A sociopath is a societal norm. They're a psychopath, but it's like a hitman for the mob. Is a sociopath because in their line of work, what they do is normative. Okay, so that's a different. Sociopathy is normative. Psychopathy isn't, depending on your social place. So that's all I'm going to go into right now. I'm learning to distance or refuse to engage in conversation. Excellent. Not to be alone with them. Exactly. Yes, that's what I've got to separate myself. I can't put myself, they know me too well. Okay, they know me too well. I'm not going to win that battle. So cut it off. So excellent. That's what you need to do. Stress and devalue. Exactly. Take care of yourself, right? Wow. Just like we talked about earlier. If I have these things going on, I have to take care of myself. I can't let myself go. And I'm not going to get any support from them to take care of myself. So that's the reason I need a support group who's going to encourage me to care for myself and to take care of it.
And if you're at that place, you need to get some help. You need to find someone that does or Dr. Mottern or someone that does what he does and get you some help to help you through that, because that's a tough position to be in.
This is an interesting one. How to Make Friends and Influence People. I know someone who may be in PD who quotes that book a lot. Could be, right? The devil quotes scripture, right? So we hear, okay? So they may very well use that to throw that back on you and make things seem very different. They're very good at that, okay? So it's not a bad book. It's a good book, just sort of used for evil means, right? So they could very well do that, yeah. And the fact that they'll do that, maybe not that particular book, but they'll do that to throw things back at you, make it your fault, right? See, I'm quoting this book. This is an expert on this. I'm quoting this. You're not doing that, so you're less than. Great resources. Enough about you. Let's talk about me, right? Let's talk about how you feel about me. Okay. What about a situation where you have to, once again, co-parenting? Very difficult because you know how they are. You know they know you. They can trigger you. Set boundaries for any interaction you have to have with them, and do not violate those boundaries, and know going in that they're going to try to get you to. A sick parent, parents, that I may find myself in a situation with either having to take care of a parent who's a narcissist or sharing responsibility with someone to do that. Yeah, once again, set boundaries and stick with boundaries. If they have to do it, they're supposed to do something, then they have to do it. Don't put up with the physical or emotional abuse. No, it's not you that has to deal with it. No, it's not you that has the problem with it, and that you don't have to put up with that. You can leave that situation. What if the person's a parent? Again, same sort of thing. Very common I've seen over the years of people who are growing up with a parent who is a narcissist. And one of the best things that I can tell you is that your parent does not determine who you are now as a person. You do. Okay, what happened in the past may have to do with who you are right now, but you can change that. You can change the way you think. You can change the way you behave. Okay, and that may mean cutting them out of your life. But you're going to have to decide, how much do I want to stick with this? How much do I want to stay in with this? What's it worth to me to engage in this relationship? Can't co-parent with a co-parenting app. Okay, there we go. Yeah. If there's an app out there, maybe somebody can share that. So pick up times and things like that. I'm out in the parking lot, send the kids out, something like this.
Gene, will you send me that?
Contact me only through that.
Yeah, Gene, will you send me the information on the app, and I'll include that in my email. That would be great. Can we take a break just real quick? I want to go back over the CEUs real quick because we're hit our 3:30. And Doctor, I don't know how much time you have, but there's still several questions. We can either go on after that, or I can just tell people we're going to have to cut it off here. But real quick, those of you that are on today for continuing education units, we're providing units for licensed social workers and licensed professional counselors in the state of Texas. That's who we're set up with. If you have a different license in the state of Texas, or you have licenses in other states, you're more than welcome to go through the process, get a certificate. You can submit it to them, but there's no guarantee that they're going to take it. Certificates of attendance are also available. The rules are the same. We're offering 1.5 classroom hours today. You must have had to complete the entire live webinar. In order to qualify, you couldn't miss more than about 5 or 10 minutes. You must complete the Google survey evaluation for either of these. It should pop up as you close out of the webinar. If it doesn't, we'll email it to you in the follow-up email. The link will be there as well. Please, we're asking everybody to complete the survey. We use this to report back our objectives that we set forth when we applied for the funding to do these. The Google survey will be up and live for 1 week. And then if you'll give us 2 weeks after that, or till the 3rd, to get those certificates to you, that would be great. And Doctor, would you, if we could just advance it to the next slide, but I want to just tell you all that our next one is on borderline personality disorder. It also is going to be a very, very popular, interesting topic: causes, treatments, and how loved ones can help. So we look forward to that on the 27th. But then if you would go back to your contact information, if you could, I want to make sure everybody has that. Especially, I guess, I'm not sure if it's in here. I'll send it out I'll send the contact information.
You know, I don't think I put a slide in there with it.
I usually catch it. I will send doctors all of his contact info. I'll send his email address out to you with the follow-up information and the website address for the Mottern Institute, so you have that. And feel free to reach out to him. But Doctor, you can decide. I don't know if you have time to go through some more of these, or do we need to just finish up? That's up to you.
No, I'm happy to go through some more of them here. Let's see.
Somebody's raised a 16-year-old narcissistic child. Can you change the behavior?
Yeah, well, I mean, if it's a personality disorder, if they actually have the personality disorder, then that's going to be very difficult to change. But you can change the thinking, can change people's thinking if they want to change. That's the thing, is they have to be, you know, it's the old joke, but it's true, right? How many psychologists does it take to change a light bulb? One, but the light bulb has to want to change, right? I mean, it's an old hack, but that's really true. If you can, you know, convey to them the importance of changing this, how their life will perhaps be easier, a whole lot easier on them and the people around them, then that would be your hope. Yeah, they can learn to change their thinking. They can do cognitive restructuring. They can learn to change their behavior. You know, engage in cognitive behavioral therapy and what have you. But they have to want to change. And so the big part of that would be, how do I get them to want to be different? And so that's where you're going to have to relate to them. And
how does that, Doctor? How does that relate to, you know, the addictions and personalities that are addictive, and trying to put the pressure on them to want to deal with their addictions, you know, as you do in these confrontations, or what do you? I can't.
Yeah. If you're dealing with it as something like substance abuse or something like that, one part of that is physical, but the other part is certainly psychological and emotional, in that getting people to realize that they can get their needs met in different ways. So coming from a reality therapy perspective, You can get your need for recognition met. You can get your need for power control met in a way that doesn't hurt yourself or other people. So sort of steering them in directions that meet those needs for them, and helping them figure out, how do I meet these needs in other ways that don't hurt other people, that don't hurt themselves. That's really where you would want to go as far as treatment went. And that would be what you would sort of look at as a parent as well. Once again, talking to them, engaging with them in other ways to meet those needs for power, for recognition, for achievement, these sorts of things, without belittling or hurting or manipulating other people.
Would it help to engage their sphere of influence in regards to getting everybody kind of together in number one, getting them to get help, but also kind of catching them when they backpedal into some of these behaviors?
Well, you know that we've known for at least 50 years or more, actually, that the way we change behavior is by rewarding the behavior we want to see. So punishing behavior we don't want to see doesn't really work. They just do it behind our backs. But when when somebody does something positive, that they do something to meet their needs in a certain way, and instead of hurting somebody, they do it in a more positive way, that's where I want to reward them. That's where I want to, whether it's a verbal compliment or whatever it happens to be. The compliments, have other advantages, especially with the narcissist. But as I do that, then they're more likely to engage in those behaviors in the future. I don't know if I answered that question or not.
No, that's and basically the sphere of influence. If you get them involved, then you want to get them involved in like you say, rewarding the good behavior and continue to do it from all sides, so that in hopes you can affect it. Because if it's just one person working alone, trying to do it, that's probably much more difficult.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The in reality therapy and choice theory, we would say, if we can get our picture in their quality world, then we're going to have more influence over them. So the people who might be in that quality world are going to definitely have influence, and that's the way you would want to approach that. Okay, just moving on here. Is there a certain characteristic or behavior confirm a diagnosis? No, diagnosis has to come from a professional. But once again, they don't have to be diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. Maybe they only have 4 of those characteristics we went over instead of 5, right? Well, 4 is bad enough, right? I don't need a diagnosis for that to know that that's not good, right? If they're considering themselves unique and special, and lacking empathy for other people and these sorts of things, and getting their needs met in a really harmful way, then I don't need a diagnosis in order to move forward with that. Call them narcissistic if you want to, okay? But how do I move forward with that is the thing. And how would a person know that they're not the problem? Is, there's probably some of a little, when we talk about relationships, relationships are composed of 3 entities: me, the other person, and the relationship, right? Which is an entity of it itself. So we can both be working on our own problems on this. Probably, I have some things going on with me while they have some things going on with them. So the fact that I'm allowing myself to be pulled in certain ways, maybe evidence that maybe I need to work on my own self-esteem in some way, and these sorts of things. So maybe I have some things, or other things, but maybe I have some things that I need to work on as well. If they're willing to seek help, can they change? If they really want to change, yes. I mean, people can change. Most certainly. I believe that. I mean, I believe that's what keeps me in the business, right? If I didn't think people could change, I'd just despair, right? And then go into a hole. But yes, people can change if they really want to. Then certainly there's hope. There's hope there. recovering. What does that look like if they're recovering? Well, they're not doing the things that they did before. That's what it looks like. Okay. I mean, if they're doing the same things, then they're not, if I'm a drug addict and I'm using drugs, I'm not in recovery. Okay. And if I'm narcissistic and I keep using these manipulation tactics and these power control and anger as a weapon and all these other things, then I'm not in recovery. Okay. I'm still acting narcissistic. I'm still and however I act, that's what I am. I'm a narcissist. Okay. But yeah, they're not doing the same things that they used to do. Now, just like anything else, you may want to look at that and say, they may have some, recovery sort of, I'm on a plane and then I relapse and I go down and it takes me a while to get back up, and it's, but it's longer the next time before it occurs, and it's not as bad. And then the next time is longer and not as bad. So, I mean, it's probably not going to be a clear divide there. There's going to be sort of ups and downs that go along with that. How do you get someone to recognize that they're involved with a narcissist? Yeah, good luck. I mean, you can put the information out there to them and see if, but oftentimes that's, people don't want to, I mean, I hear what you're saying. People don't want to recognize that there might be a problem, because oftentimes these relationships can be codependent, right? And codependency that may be another topic, Marty.
Yes.
Codependency.
No doubt.
So, the person themselves may be working their own issues and don't want to recognize that that person is a narcissist. So you can't make somebody think something or do something that they don't choose to do, unfortunately.
But now,
or maybe fortunately.
Once you get my email with the link to the recording of this, you can forward that to them and let them watch the recording of today's presentation and see if that helps.
Yeah. I'm married to one for 20 years, took the counselor's advice and left. Good counselor. Using grown children to get at me. They'll do that, right? They'll do that because they're not the problem, right? You're the problem, not them. So yeah, it's very difficult. And if it was somebody we didn't know or we didn't care for, it was just our boss, then we could get over that pretty easily. But the problem is that oftentimes it is family, or it is husband, wife, significant other, something like this, mother, father, brother, sister, and it's very difficult to have to deal with that. So. Is the first DSM criteria need to be present? All of those other criteria are going to show up as a sense of grandiosity. Okay, that's just how it's going to show up. Okay, yeah, in any of the other 9 characteristics are going to show up as a sense of grandiosity, as that sense of inflated self, because that's what the narcissist has to have. So you're going to have that, and all of those other 9, and you have to have 5 of them, like you said, but all of those other 9 will show up in some way that highlights that self grandeur. Okay, that's how it'll show up. Narcissistic personality disorder is those 5. You got 5 or more of those characteristics. That's it. You want to have someone who deals with this to really look at it. Now, those of you who, if you have to deal with one in your life, you may know much more about this than any clinician, okay? Because you have to deal with it on a daily basis in your life. But to be diagnosed as that, you're going to have somebody diagnose it. And like I said, if you're dealing with somebody with narcissistic tendencies, maybe they only have 4 of those characteristics instead of 5, right? So they don't get NPD, but they're still got these abundant narcissistic characteristics, which are also very harmful. If they have 5 or more of them, it's NPD, and if they don't, it's narcissistic tendencies. And once again, I'm not on the continuum scale where we're all sick and some people are just sicker than others. You're either hurting people or you're not hurting people. Okay. I mean, that's the way we look at it in reality therapies. Once behavior evaluation, and the evaluation part is what I'm doing, getting me closer to what I want in a way that doesn't hurt me or others. If I'm hurting other people, bad choice, right? So if I'm hurting other people with this, you know, narcissistic tendency, I'm either hurting somebody or I'm not. Okay. So like I said, I don't use that continuum. I'm either hurting somebody or I'm not. So I'm either a narcissist or I'm not a narcissist. And I don't know why you would need to, you know, have a diagnosis of NPD if people are acting that way. Treat them as if they are.
Diana, thank you for the information. I'll include that in the follow-up email. Thank you for those apps. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Once again, some personal stories that, you know, just how difficult it can be to really have to deal with individuals who may have these narcissistic characteristics, who may be NPD. Yeah. Anybody who doesn't want to change is not responsive to therapy, right? It's not that they're unable to change, it's they don't want to change, right? It's the same way with psychopathy, right? In psychopathy, people who have psychopathy don't want to change because what they're doing is meets their needs for them. They don't care. It hurts you. Who cares? I don't care about you. Same way with a narcissist. I don't care about you. Okay. I have no empathy for you. So it meets my needs. Why do I want to change? Right. So yeah, I don't see a need to change. That's exactly right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. They're excellent actors, right? This is the reason, if you think you're in a situation with a narcissist, cut it off. Cut it off. Don't go. What are you going to therapy for? They don't want to change. You know, you can go. It'll help you in some way if you think you need help, but therapy is not going to do anything for them because they don't want to change. And if you do, then they'll do exactly that. They'll turn it back and play the victim, and they're very good at that. They're experts at it. You can't beat them at it.
In the Q&A, there's a couple of people that are asking about treatment, which you've kind of gone over. One person asked about what causes development of the disorder.
Once again, you know, I sort of gave you the example of how we would view it in something like choice theory psychology from the position of reality therapy. I engage in behaviors, and as those behaviors meet my needs, they become a pattern of behavior. So when I engage in this behavior and it tends to be hurtful to other people, my needs don't care. I just know that it meets my needs. So I adopt that as a pattern of behavior as I go forward. And those patterns of behavior that I develop are clustered into what we call NPD. If you look at it from another perspective, if you look at it from the psychodynamic perspective, they have it's not completely different. It's sort of the same thing. We're sort of saying the same thing, just in sort of different ways, sort of a theoretical way. But psychodynamic theory does look at it a different way. It start looking at it as the ego development and things of that nature, rather than just as thinking and behaviors, more how we look at it in reality therapy.
I think we've got most of them. I want to say that, number one, I know many of you people obviously are dealing with this. You know, it's important to make sure you reach out to somebody and get the help you need. You know, Dr. Mottern does this. There's other people that do this. You need to reach out to somebody, but also, as Dr. Mottern said earlier, the value of support groups. And those are just incredibly valuable. And I can see where in these cases, it would be incredibly valuable while you're trying to work through that difficult position of separating yourself and cutting off contact.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's one of the things that narcissists will do, is they will cut you away from your support group so that they can manipulate you, right? So, I mean, I know people who've been in that relationship where they have no friends. You don't have friends. I have friends. My friends are your friends, right? That's what it turns into. and narcissists don't have many friends. So they will cut you away from your family. They'll cut you away from people who support you. They'll do that so they can isolate you and so they can manipulate you. So yes, support groups, the more support you can get and stick with it, the better it is.
Go ahead.
What's the best therapy to use with someone with MPD? I tend to look at it from a cognitive behavioral perspective myself, because that's what needs to change if they're going to change. But once again, they're going to have to make the decision. One of the things we know about therapy is outside of something like correctional therapy, it doesn't really make any difference what type of therapy it is. It's the relationship between the therapist and the client. So if you ask me what the best is, I'm going to go with cognitive behavioral, probably reality therapy. But psychodynamic therapy has its own theory behind this as well.
Great.
What do you say to get them into treatment? Can't make somebody want treatment. Can't make somebody want to be different. Okay, you can express to them your thoughts on it, how what they do hurts other people and hurts you and what have you, and suggest that maybe they could be different. If they want to, they'll move forward. If they don't, however, there's nothing really that you're going to say that's going to make them want to be different. You can just give them what your experience with them is and suggest that there are other ways for them to meet their needs besides hurtful ways. And therapists, are, especially cognitive behavioral therapists, are very good at coming up with ways that people can practice different ways to meet their needs.
And for some reason I cannot think of the term, and it's just killing me because I've been in some. But when you get a group, the sphere of influence together to confront an alcoholic, and it's a give me the term. Intervention. Does an intervention have any value in this circumstance?
No, with a narcissist, I imagine a narcissist would be eager to. That would just test their abilities. No, none whatsoever. I don't think that would have any. They would just see that as a challenge, I think.
Interesting. Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah. Dr. Mottern, thank you so very much. Once again, I mean, you can tell by all of the comments, incredibly good information, just incredible. And I would imagine that people are going to reach out to you and hopefully get the help they need. That's great stuff. All thank you. And thank you for especially your extra time. I mean, we're almost a half hour over. Thank you for being so generous with your time, Doctor.
My pleasure.
Y'all, thank you so much for joining us. You should have the slides. You'll get the slides in the follow-up email. I'll give you Dr. Mottern's information, and I'll also include the apps that people have sent me. I've got a couple of people that have sent me apps for this parenting with a narcissistic co-parent. So I appreciate y'all joining us. Look forward to the email for the follow-up, and join us for the next one. I think it's on the 27th when we it just fell me. But when we get together again.
Borderline.
Thank you. Borderline personality disorder.
Borderline personality.
Thank you. You all have a wonderful day.